Well, it's extremely relevant, I think. Just think about the fact that in the last 5 years alone, more than 1 billion people have gotten onto social networks around the world. We've never seen anything like this before. If you work it out, that's almost 1/5 of the world's population. And there seems to be a very clear desire that people want to connect to each other. It's the best manifestation of that ever. And so it's become such a part of our society that it's even transformed certain political regimes that were, it was unthinkable that Egypt would change so fast, but it did. That's the first example that comes to mind. But there's so many other things that have happened. So I think it's extremely important that, and another thing that we've seen with social media is that the kind of content that people are sharing with each other, it's kind of casual. I mean, it's really not, it's not really in-depth intellectual content. So what we see is that we also learn about what people really want to get engaged with about each other. And I think that's why social media has got to be considered by the investment management, because in the end it is a technology that allows you to have a one-on-one relationship with millions of people at the same time. It's too big an opportunity to ignore. Well, I think the first thing that a lot of people are concerned about in our industry is the regulatory framework and how it might get in the way. Regulators don't want you to go out to the world and speak about your investment products and performance because, it might be seen by people who are not exactly qualified investors. But I see that more as an opportunity, actually. I don't think it's a very good excuse, because if you strip out what regulators don't want you to do, something very interesting happens, because then what gets revealed is, what you have to reveal is why you are in business. What is the essential thing that makes you show up every day? And beyond performance or beyond products, that's really what people want to know about. They want to know why you're doing something. Look at Apple, for example. It became such a big success. It was a rebellious proposition. It was not about just the nice technology they make, but they took a stand for doing something different, and people could understand what they were trying to achieve. And I think, again, if we look at the kind of things that people want to know about each other, they really want to connect on an emotional level. So I think that is, once a manager can get to speak about what it is exactly keeps him in business, I think that's when the communication can become really meaningful. There's other things that keep people away from the social media. It probably also has to do with trying to find support internally. It probably has to do with finding the kind of resources that can help them produce all the kind of content. And that's essentially a learning curve. It's also about teaching your organization to understand how important social media really is for a company and its success. Well, I think it's about building a platform. So what we've seen is social media has created a decentralization of the media. So essentially what happens is, before, the media used to own the information. And that's just changed, because every organization can be a valid medium in its own right. They can build up their own channels. What it looks like, at least in my experience, what works very well is, first of all, you have to build your content. And that can be in writing, and that can be audiovisual, or a combination of both. So a blog is very important. A blog is essentially a place with keywords that describe what you're doing, why you're doing things. And then you have to learn how to add the value, add the right kind of content. And the right kind of content is, in a very noisy and a world where attention span has been minimized, that's about giving people something to think about in bite-sized time frames. So you probably want to conquer them 1 minute at a time and earn their attention, because the most valuable asset right now is someone's attention. Even more so, someone's attention whose attention you want to have. And so I think it's all about building first a framework, which is where you can communicate, where you can keep your content, like a blog, and that's about building your own channels. And the most common channels are, well, we have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, and we have Facebook, and they all serve a different kind of purpose. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to try to obsess about which network is better than the other. It's just that some people read the paper, some people watch TV, and some people just want to hear it from others. So if you occupy all the channels in their own way, it sort of only opens up your exposure to the world. And so that's what I think generally an investment manager's social media strategy should look like. Well, it's actually pretty similar, because in the end, investors are people as well. And you know, investing is an extremely emotional activity. There's a lot of fear, greed, all those kind of emotions involved. So I don't think it's very different than trying to arouse a retail customer to buy your product. I think it's really, you've got to build a level of trust with people, whether you are selling computers, you are trying to get someone to wear your fragrance. They've sort of got to trust that your brand is cool enough to wear. And the same is with investment managers. People have got to learn to trust you. So it's always going to be an emotional connection. And I think one of the things in the industry, I think we may have to sort of loosen up a little bit, because in the end we're dealing with people, and if we're going to want their attention, we're going to have to not only deal with their intellect, but we're going to have to deal with their hearts as well, and it's a little bit more of a deeper connection that we have to look for. You have to experiment, it's true, and that's actually a thing that a lot of people are afraid of. There's a few notorious mistakes that were made, I guess, on the social media space about miscommunicating, but I think it's all about really keeping your common sense in place. It has to do with as long as you're genuine to your core message and what you really believe in, I don't really think you can get it that wrong, because you just have to be true to what you're doing and make sure that people understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because in the end, that's what we're people. We're curious about why people do things. Go to a movie, it's always about why people are doing things in these movies. The bestsellers, the best-selling novels are about that as well. It's about a character that people can relate to, and they have to relate to your company, your services. Budget, it's actually very cheap. It is, I think a lot of advertising commands a lot of spending because it's keeping your marketing budgets alive. So it's sort of a circuit that exists and is maintained that way. But I can speak, for example, what we did at Silk Invest. If I told you a number, it's ridiculously low. I mean, it's a lot of time to get it right. And once you have a framework and a platform built up, it's just maintaining it. But budget-wise, think about it, it's essentially free. The channels are open. You know, you can create a group on LinkedIn, gather 15,000 people in your tribe, and have an ongoing communication. If you build a very nice Facebook page, and people, you know, where's the limit on people liking it? I mean, people like Lady Gaga have zillions of followers, so you know, if you're up to something really interesting and genuine, it shouldn't be much different. Oh, you have to work on it. I mean, it's a continuous production of content, and you get very creative as you go doing it. You get efficient at it, and I think one of the big revolutions is going to be audiovisual. That's really because, for example, when you write a blog post, you know, you have to edit it. It takes some time. But like what we're doing right now, this is on the spot and it's live, and it can be shipped within an hour, and you're done. So I think it's probably the most cost-efficient way to do your marketing.